Don't swallow anything I say. Don't swallow anything anyone says. Listen to this like the way a goldsmith analyzes gold. Hammering, heating, scraping, cutting, melting. And whatever is gold, keep. Whatever is dross, throw away. But also don't have this attitude. You know, like the bald eagle Muppet on the Muppet Show? I don't know, maybe, okay, you know what I'm talking about? You know that guy, all right? That guy's a little closed off, all right? Don't be closed off. Also don't be, hey man, Bill, whatever. Here's the bank account. All right, right now, let me sign the bank account out, right? Neither one of those is good, okay, right? Somewhere in the middle, in medias stat virtus. All right, here we go. Now we've seen what it was, now we're going to see what became of it. Right? You're going to see what became of it. Let's look at the historical use of this parable throughout the ages. Let's see how the early post-New Testament Jesus groups and later Christians grappled to understand this story. We're going to be traveling a long, long way from the Galilean village context. St. Irenaeus of Lyon, writing around 180 Common Era, turns the already allegorized parable, found in Mark, into a greater allegory of human history and its failures until the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. Irenaeus lists a long recounting of all the wicked men of history who all violated the laws of God. And he says that all of these historical bad guys are what Christ meant by the tenants. See what Irenaeus did? He took each item in the story and assigned to it a symbolic meaning. Irenaeus provides this historical list of bad guys, finally culminating in the death and resurrection of Jesus. It's clear that Irenaeus has piggybacked onto Mark. So let's compare and contrast. Gospel of Thomas, a critique of power and the pursuit of wealth. Gospel of Mark, 20 years after, 70 Common Era, an allegory of the death of the storyteller Jesus. St. Irenaeus of Lyon, 180 Common Era, an allegory of all the history of salvation. Let's go a little bit further, centuries further. The Christian Eusebius of Caesarea, perhaps the patron saint of fundamentalists, writing around 324 Common Era, he allegorizes the parable even further. For Eusebius, it becomes an allegory of the rejection of Christ, the beloved Son, by the Judeans, and the eventual triumph of Christianity at the time of Constantine. Now the parable of the tenants is becoming anti-Semitic. Eusebius is arguing that the wicked people of history, the bad guys who did all the bad things, were Judeans. They are the tenants, the Judeans. Later, medieval Christians will read Eusebius as referring not just to Judeans, but to Jews. The Jews are the evil tenants. You think this has effects on history? This is serious what we're talking about, folks. And the good guys, who are they? The Christians. With all the non-Israelites pouring into the church with Emperor Constantine, who made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. With Eusebius, the parable of the tenants can, in medieval times, mutate into an anti-Jewish allegory of Christian triumphalism. We are nowhere near the villages of first century Syro-Palestine. Now we are using Jesus in justifying the imperial cruelty of Constantine, or whoever the Roman emperor is. This parable is now being used as the justification of horrific warfare and suppression of peoples. Think about it. Eusebius helps turn Jesus' parable around 180 degrees. Instead of being a parable as a criticism of greedy elites with Eusebius, it now becomes the justification of the greedy elites. But hold on, because things get a lot weirder. St. Thomas Aquinas, for hundreds of years, has been recognized as the great theologian of the Big C Catholic Church. He comments on the parables of Jesus, and he discusses the parable of the tenants. Aquinas says that the vineyard is the human soul. This is allegory, where vineyard is a symbol for something else. Aquinas writes, "The vineyard is the soul of each believer. It requires faithful tending rather than rebellious disobedience." Aquinas has spiritualized this already heavily allegorized parable. No longer is it a story about a peasant for peasants about economic injustice. It is now a symbolic story about the spirituality of each individual person. By the time the parable of the tenants reaches Aquinas, it has been thoroughly domesticated.